Hello and welcome to Business Daily, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Lee Ji-yoon. We have a lot on our plate this morning, so let's get started. Is it a cost-saving or costly industry? We take a look at the economics behind Korea's nuclear power industry as the country seeks to expand its business in the field. Korean cuisine, or Hanshik, is drawing in crowds at a Milan festival, with the number of Hanshik restaurants around the world going up by the year. But first, let's take a look at today's top business stories. Does the country need to pump in more cash in the face of the MERS outbreak? Now, that's the question Korea's Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan will have to answer soon. The minister said he will decide on whether to draw up a supplementary budget by the end of this month after analyzing economic conditions up until then. As for the size of the potential extra stimulus, Choi said it depends on how bad the MERS outbreak affects the Korean economy. He added that if the effects of the virus don't start to wane, a supplementary budget of substantial size will be necessary. Korea's labor productivity in the manufacturing sector has increased by roughly 5 times its real wage growth levels over the past 5 years. According to U.S. research group, the Conference Board, while hourly work productivity has increased in Korea by an annual 2.7% from 2009 to 2014, real wages only grew at a rate of roughly 0.6%. Experts say such a large gap in labor productivity and wage growth is worrisome because it can squeeze spending in the middle class and further widen the gap of income disparity. Seoul and Washington have signed a revised deal on civilian nuclear energy cooperation, officially putting an end to over 4 years of negotiations. Korea's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and U.S. Energy Secretary Ernest Moniz signed the revision to the 1974 Nuclear Cooperation Pact that leaves the door open for Korea to enrich uranium and reprocess spent fuel upon approval from Washington. Under the revised treaty, Korea will also be able to start researching a new technology for nuclear fuel recycling known as pyroprocessing. Korea is the world's 5th largest nuclear energy producer and continues to look for ways to manage its nuclear waste that has built up over the past decades. It's not hard to find Italian restaurants here in Korea, perhaps reflecting the love that many Koreans have for Italian food. But now, Korean cuisine, or Hanshik, is showing off its taste and beauty in no place other than the fashion capital of Milan, Italy. This with hopes of capturing the taste buds of not only Italians, but people from all over the world. Our Lee Ji-young has the story.
At Alma, a leading international school for Italian cuisine, chefs are attending their first ever lecture on making Korean-Italian fusion food.
I will demonstrate some of the characteristics that can only be found in Korean food made with Korean ingredients.
Despite being a school that fosters Italian master chefs, Alma is slowly incorporating Korean food, or Hanshik, into its dishes, showing the rising global popularity of Hanshik over the recent years. It's also a trend that can be spotted at Expo Milano 2015, a large-scale global event organized to discuss the future of food production by bringing countries and organizations together. The event is being held for 6 months, and a Korean pavilion set up here has received great response so far.
For someone like me who likes spicy food, kimchi is a very important dish.
The expo hosts 145 countries and focuses on promoting culinary and agricultural innovations from each nation. An official says over 20,000 people have visited the Hanshik booth since opening on May 1st.
Local newspapers and broadcasters are showing a lot of interest in Hanshik, and they've been running a number of feature stories.
Korea's Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs says the number of Hanshik restaurants overseas that are operated by Korean companies were at 3,700 as of last year, which is a 40% increase compared to the year before. But it hopes to see that number climb to 7,000 by 2020. The Korean Food Foundation, a group that works to enhance the country's image through business opportunities, said it's developing a guidebook exhibiting the best Korean restaurants around the world. It will showcase new recipes in the works as well, and is set to be published in Singapore and Hong Kong next year. Lee Ji-young, Business Daily.
is the fifth largest nuclear powerhouse in the world, with the country continuously looking for ways to further expand its nuclear energy business. Already almost 30% of the country's electricity supply comes from this power source. And that's what we're going to talk about with our Kwon So-ah this morning, who now joins us in the studio. Good to see you.
Good morning.
All right, so just last week we heard that Korea's oldest reactor is about to be shut down. What's the latest on that?
Right, that's the Kori 1, which is 37 years old, older than you and me, and it is on the brink of being shut down forever, as Korea's energy ministry requested on Friday. But now the state-run nuclear power agency has to give the final nod, which is expected to happen pretty soon.
All right, well, was it an issue of safety, or did it just not have any more life in it?
Well, Jiyoon, actually, that is a tough one because the operator of the plant claimed it could run longer, but then environmentalists and residents were strictly against it. And that's also the same situation with the Walsung 1 reactor, but that was given the green light to operate another decade earlier this year. Now, 5 more aged reactors are waiting in line for their fate to be decided on over the next 10 years. So why is Korea extending the lifespan of its nuclear reactors or even building new ones, as I'll explain in this next report? It's got a lot to do with its economic potential. Take a look.
Korea is home to 23 nuclear reactors. An additional 11 are either under construction or in the works to be built. And before 2030, the total number could reach 36, as the government recently announced its aim to spend $6.2 billion to add 2 more to the list. This falls in line with its 2015 to 2029 long-term power supply and demand plan, according to which nuclear energy will make up 28.5% of the country's overall electricity supply, a slight rise from an earlier goal of 27.4% by 2027. The basic advantage of nuclear energy is that it's clean and cheap. Compare the 51, or roughly 4 cents, that goes into producing a kilowatt per hour of nuclear energy to coal, which costs 81 or 7 cents. Wind power costs twice as much, not to mention solar energy that's over 10 times more expensive than nuclear energy.
If nuclear power gets replaced by other means of energy, it'll affect people's livelihoods and even more the country's industrial competitiveness, as electricity fees will surge. More importantly, we have to reduce carbon dioxide emissions for the global post-2020 climate agreements. To avoid paying penalties for an overuse, we need to rely on nuclear reactors more, as they don't emit CO2.
Despite these benefits, other experts say Korea should lessen its high reliance on this source of energy.
Countries in Europe and the US over the past 30 years have either stopped building or are reducing the number of nuclear plants. The main reason is economic feasibility. The core issue is, why is nuclear energy being seen as cheap in Korea while developed countries say it's expensive? There are reports that say important costs, for example, those involved in the disposal of nuclear waste or accident costs, have been underestimated.
And speaking of accidents, Professor Kim says despite there being a very small chance of occurrence, in the event of one, the consequences will be massive. He says countries that put safety first don't see the economic benefits of nuclear energy being that high, as it just costs too much money to implement adequate safety measures. But the government has also been conscious about such concerns, requesting guidance from foreign experts. Earlier this year, Korea's blueprint for a 1,400-megawatt reactor has made it through preliminary inspections by the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Once it passes the final test, it's expected to boost domestic trust in nuclear-powered energy sources and improve prospects for Korea's nuclear technology in the global arena.
Well, so speaking of the global arena, where does Korea stand in competitiveness in terms of nuclear technology?
Well, I asked that question to the two professors I talked to earlier, and what's very interesting is that they had such different answers to that, because one of the professors actually said that Korea's nuclear technology is the best in the world. And considering not only the technology itself, but the strong workforce that the country has in this field. And the other experts said, despite Korea being the 5th largest nuclear power, the level of technological advancement is not exactly on par, especially considering the frequent malfunctions.
All right, but it's advanced enough to be exported?
Right, and mostly to the Middle East, but also to Europe since last year. And currently, the country is exporting 4 nuclear reactors into the United Arab Emirates. And there is potential for more opportunities, as Korea and the U.S. signed a Civil Nuclear Energy Cooperation Pact just Monday that'll allow Korea to start researching new technology for spent nuclear fuel recycling.
All right, well, let's hope that more doors open to show Korea its potential. Thank you so much for coming in today, Soa.
My pleasure.
All right, that'll do it for me, but we'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. Thanks for watching, and goodbye for now.